Torrance Board of Education. We are here to give our first quarterly construction update from our measures Y and Z school bond construction activity. Before we go any further, I would like to, on behalf of the entire Board of Education and the Torrance Unified School District, thank the City of Torrance for graciously allowing us to use their wonderful facilities here tonight. We are broadcasting this on city cable as well as local cable channels. And this is all part of our effort to inform the community and to be transparent in terms of our construction activities in regards to our spending of Measure Y and Z school bond funds. So thank you very much, City of Torrance. And also our Public Information Officer, Ms. Khan, told me to also thank the City of Torrance staff who helped in setting up this arrangement tonight. So with that, our Superintendent, Dr. Manning.
Excuse me, Mr. President. Could we adopt the agenda?
Oh, yes, of course. I'm forgetting all the... Why don't we start off with the Pledge of Allegiance? We have a new student representative here, Kristen Muha from North High School. Welcome, and would you please lead us to the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We have an agenda before us. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And now, Dr. Manning.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. We have our construction team with us tonight. As you indicated, Mr. President, that we will be giving quarterly updates on the status of our projects and progress to date. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Gil Fullen from the Barnhart Corporation, who will introduce members of the construction team and provide you an update on our first quarterly activities.
It's a pleasure to be here tonight. My name is Gil Fullen. I'm with Barnhart. We're your construction managers and program managers. And I'd like to introduce Paul Westberg with Westberg & White Architects, Ren Nickel with Westberg & White Architects, Gary with HMC, Barbara with IBI. We have Charlie with Barnhart, Jacob with Barnhart, and John Bernardi with Barnhart. Did I miss anybody? And Gordon Getchell with Barnhart. He is our program manager. Before we begin tonight, we wanted to give you a brief overview of what we're going to be covering tonight. We're going to talk about the progress of the new field designs and construction, Measure Z project. That's going to be covered by Westberg & White, immediate bond dollars at work. Under Measures Y and Z, we're going to be doing progress reports as far as where we're at right now and where we're going to be going here in the next 90 days. We're going to do a progress report for South, for Magruder, for Walteria. And then we're going to get into the new construction projects. IBI will talk about that. And we'll get into the progress on Hull and Fern. So to begin, we're going to bring Paul up here from Westberg & White, and we'll talk about fields.
Good evening, President Marisucha and members of the board, Dr. Manning, and community. So pleased to be here. And I'd start out with great news. Our infamous DSA, which you are all well familiar with, we have approvals on all 4 sports fields already. Miracles sometimes do happen, so I think this is probably a very fortunate and lucky school district. As we progress through this, and as Gil indicated, and by the way, Rand Nickel, you've had Rand come up here. Rand has been here for a lot of the technical discussions. He's also one of my partners and working with me for the last 33 years, so my son in process here. These are the first 4 projects that are going to be able to hit the street rather soon, and so your community is going to be able to see things actually happening right away. And just for the community's knowledge, we were authorized to go forward on this project the Friday after the successful election. So no time has been wasted to get projects out on the street right away, and we've had a number of board meetings already discussing these particular projects. So let's take a look at kind of a sense. This is a picture of, actually it's one of our other projects. That's actually the Downey High School Sports Stadium, and that photo was taken from the permanent home side, really nice bleachers, towards the visitor side, which are all aluminum bleachers, and those are the kind of bleachers that we're going to be having in your particular district. We have 2 projects right now in DSA for approval of bleachers, and that is the South High School and the Torrance High School. And the other 2 bleacher systems that we're going to be erecting and getting approvals from after the season is completed. And so that would be at West, of which part of that is concrete bleachers right now, and we're going to do some modifications of that. And the metal bleachers that the community knows at West will be replaced with brand new aluminum bleachers. At North High School, we are going to be doing the same thing, especially on the visitor side. That'll also be new aluminum bleachers. And we'll be working on that big concrete permanent bleacher facility with shower locker rooms and everything else underneath after the season progresses. The pictures up there are kind of showing also a picture of the press box. We're going to have a new press box on all of our bleacher systems. And that is a press box for home team and a press box for visitors. It's also going to have all the ADA requirements to have the availability of getting up into the press box. That'll be ramps and a lift that'll be able to get up into that particular location. All the light standards at all 4 high schools are going to remain exactly where they are right now. And as we progress, and by the way, for the community's knowledge, the bleacher count, the amount of people that we will be occupying, is 2,500 on the home side and 1,500 on the visitor side. And these bleachers are going to be bigger, taking up more area than the existing bleachers at a lot of the sites. And that means that if we have permanent light standards, we're going to be building bleachers around those light standards. They are going to be all in aluminum. They're going to have aluminum seats, and they're also going to have kick plates underneath. So it doesn't have that opening at your footwell area for trash to be able to migrate down through there. And so as we progress through here, what we've done is we've taken a picture of aerial shots of all 4 particular sites. And this is at Torrance High School, across from Torrance Elementary. And this gives the community a sense of how a field's going to look. The field itself is going to be in the turf, and the Ds, or the 2 endpoints, are going to be in the track material. And I have not talked about track. We are going to have, so 8 lane?
8 lanes.
8 lane, complete new sports track on all 4 sites. That means that at West, we are going to kind of resurface with an all-new covering at West, because obviously as we get onto West and do construction out there and tear out everything inside to build up our new sports field, we're going to pretty well harm the track that's there right now. So also these fields are going to have sprinklers. The sprinklers are to cool down the field during the hot summer months and keep them clean. Right. So this is a shot of the Torrance High School. I believe Gil can probably indicate. I think we're out to bid for demolition, or
Yeah, and once you go through these slides, there's a
Okay.
schedule at the end. I'll cover that.
Super, super. So this is a shot both of our architectural drawing and of an aerial shot of Torrance.
Yes, why don't you go ahead? Yes, Dr. Ernst.
I just had a quick question. So you mentioned the lights, and so the lighting isn't going to change? The lights
Those big,
are going to be
expensive, permanent light standards are
They
going to
stay.
remain where they are right
okay.
now.
And are you adding any new lighting, or you're not adding new lighting?
I don't think that we are at this present time, nor
Okay.
does the budget indicate.
Okay, so neighbors in that area aren't going to see new lights.
We're
The lights
hoping,
are gonna,
we're hoping that we're going to probably look at that. If there's a shielding that needs to be done for the neighbors, we certainly will take a look at that.
Sure. Okay, very good, thank you.
Okay?
Mr. Lee?
Yeah, and then on the, so we'll have elevators that will then take the, it won't be from the ground level, it'll be from some level up a
Yes, there will
little
be a
further?
series of ramps up to a certain level, and then there will be a lift up to the level of the press box.
Okay, and then the second thing is, the fields will be striped for football and soccer.
Yes.
And then, from what I understood, there'd be dots out there for
lacrosse?
for lacrosse to be able
Yes.
to line that up.
Absolutely.
And then you're able to line this field with some material, and it just gets washed down into the,
Typically, what happens with lacrosse is you'll see they'll set cones on the dots, and you just stay inside the cones. So little orange cones. So, or sometimes you'll see them physically take like the chalk machines and stripe the chalk. After the game, you can turn the sprinklers on, and it washes it right away.
okay, that's what,
It
okay.
can be
so
done
that-
either way.
So you can still chalk the field if you wanted to?
Yes, you could.
And it doesn't damage it or anything like that?
Correct.
Good, thank you very much.
And of course, these sports fields are for all different sports, plus PE all day long, tracks for the community, marching bands, flag twirlers, all kinds. This is a 24/7, 7-day-a-week capability of facility, which is just great.
Do I have a question for Mr. Steffen?
Yeah, you mentioned a lift. You know, is a lift different than an elevator, cost-wise and maintenance-wise?
Yes.
Yes.
A lot
Yes.
cheaper.
Okay, so we're not going for the full blower, because
It's about a $300,000 item if we want to do an elevator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're
Yeah.
just okay, that's all I want to know, make
All
sure.
the requirements met, both state and federal, and as reasonably priced as possible.
Thank you.
Mrs. Reagans?
Yeah, I just had a question about the durability of the bleachers. The sports teams use those for conditioning, running up and down, all that kind of stuff. How's it going to do under that kind of use?
Let's go back and take a look at those a little bit. You might see up in the right-hand corner, these are good, solid aluminum bleachers, extremely durable. No wood anymore, no issues like at South where the wood is worn down so much that the pegs are sticking up. And of course, that's part and parcel of discussions I've had with the state architect pertinent to our professional concerns on these bleachers. And we are continuing to prod them along to make sure that we can get these bleachers ready for installation prior to the season. And that takes some doing these days with the state being on its furlough process and everything. But I'm so far very, very pleased with the LA office and how they're responding to your district.
Okay, thank you.
One thing just to add to that too is the state architect's office moved to the international code, which they call it the CBC, the 2007 CBC. The structural requirements for the state of California have all been upgraded, so these are all under the most current code. And that code actually requires exiting within timeframes for emergency purposes, if an earthquake or anything like that. Having a football team running up and down the stairs will do nothing to harm those stairs when it's designed for hundreds of people exiting very quickly down an aisle. So, yeah, they're hardy stairs.
One also item you noticed, dead center in the 50-yard line, we've shown logos for every particular site. So get a real kind of personalization by each site and kind of get their own entitlements and feelings. We're now at West, the previous one, I'm sorry, we were at North there. We talked about after season dealing with the bleachers at North. And now we're at West. This is the one where you see the new sports track also on top of the old track. And also at South, we are looking at the new bleachers both on the front side and on both sides. And we're also, Dr. Mannon wanted us to really kind of take a look at ways to kind of discourage any kind of trash impact to the neighbors along the property line. And what we're looking at possibly is adding a number of trees that can grow up. It'd be very green, very attractive. It would be a nice shielding to the neighbors, and also becomes, if it's an evergreen, a nice abutment for things kind of going over your shoulder at the end of a football game. So we're looking at doing some mitigation concerns out in that particular location. Now we want to get down to the schedule. And those of you who aren't wearing glasses, I will give that over to Barnhart to let them talk about what kind of schedules we're on.
Actually,
Yes,
yeah, before
yes, sir.
Mr. Pullen comes back up, Mr. Steffen, you have a
Just a quick question. You had mentioned at the very beginning that all the approvals from DSA are complete, but then you kind of implied that maybe some of the bleachers aren't.
Very good question. What we actually have is 6 submittals. We have a submittal for each site pertinent to the fields. That's 4. And we have 2 submittals for the 2 sets of bleachers at each one of the sites, Torrance and South. The bleacher submittals took place, I think, almost 2 months ago, a month and a half ago. And those are the things that we do not have approval at yet. But the 4 fields, in other words, the demolition, the replacement of fields, the replacement of tracks, the curbs, and all of that have been approved.
You don't foresee any potential problem with approval from DSA? on
We
the
are
bleachers?
certainly hopeful. Yeah, you want to
that.
talk about that?
DSA is always a wild card, but what we have done is we fully engineered. Typically, the process is that you will submit a bleacher design to DSA. They will approve the design, and then you go through the actual physical design once you have a vendor on board who does all the detailing and the structural calcs. Then that design goes through what they call a deferred approval process, and then it gets the final approval, and you build it. We have sped the process up by doing 100% of the design, calcs, design, everything ahead of time. We met with DSA. We went over the designs with them. They said, great. We did 100% of the design on the first submittal. So we have basically eliminated the deferred approval process. And so when we get our final approvals, we're 100% done, ready to build. And we're on schedule for having those approvals prior to the installation this summer.
Okay, thank you.
I just had a few quick questions. Just to confirm, you were talking about how sturdy those aluminum bleachers were going to be. So they are built with the expectation that our kids would be using them to run up and down the stairs for training?
They are actually built for 2,500 people on the home side, 1,500 on the visitor side, in a full earthquake. So they are very strong and sturdy. You'll find that the step material is actually stronger because it takes a weight load of people running, a whole herd of people running down those stairs to exit in an emergency. So, you know, when you have a dozen guys running up and down the stairs, they could not hurt those stairs.
It's almost nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually, you know, the aluminum that they use is a lot thicker on those stairs. So, I mean, it's like the center stair section it's so strong, they've never heard it.
Okay.
You might also recall in earlier discussions at other board meetings, we've already hired the soils engineers. They've done the test borings. We know what size foundations are required. All of that has been submitted to DSA and awaiting their approval.
Okay. Next question I have is, you mentioned that sprinklers were going to be used to cool down the fields. I know that when we discussed the turf contract, there was discussion about how we were going to cut down on our water usage, but I'm assuming that because it's just for the cooling and not for the full watering of natural grass, that would be the savings there.
The typical cooling effect takes about 3 minutes.
Okay.
You just have the sprinklers on for 3 minutes. What it does is the cooling, the drying effect of the water on the grass blades itself cools them off. It dissipates all the heat.
Okay.
So
And last question for now is, I love trees. I know that neighbors love mitigation, but is that in our bond project list?
Well, I think it's a part overall of the entire project and what we can do with the project. So that's one reason they're looking at that for any mitigation.
Okay. Would that be covered? Well, I guess we haven't talked. We've only talked about the budget cost in terms of the turf so far. We haven't gotten to the.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any other questions regarding the fields at this point?
We'd have people donate their Christmas trees.
Always thinking outside the box, Mr. Lee. All right. Thank you.
Actually, can I?
Oh, okay. Oh,
Can I follow up
yes.
on one thing about the trees? I know, and I noticed on the picture about North, that they are taking out those trees at the end of the North field, correct?
That is correct.
So in fact, they are eliminating that line of trees. Is there a chance for that to be replaced, or is that just going to be eliminated?
Absolutely. We're looking for an evergreen tree rather than deciduous. And so the problems with the existing trees would be that a lot of leaves would be falling into the field and creating a lot of potential damage and picking all those things out. Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, we're removing trees, the existing trees at north.
Yes,
This would
that's
be at
what we were
north.
talking
That's
about.
our
Okay,
discussion.
that's right.
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 All right.
But replacing them perhaps with more
And your principal there is doing a
track-friendly.
lot of interface with the community over
Yes,
this year.
yes, he is, thanks.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
I just wanted to add one more bit of information on the bleachers. And from what we've heard is one of the bleachers has actually come back from the accessibility side. It's also our understanding that that needs to go in through structural and through fire, and that's also a process. So we're hopeful that it'll come through, but it's one of those things that's up in the air. So we're pushing it hard as we can, but they take longer to get through DSA. So I really wanted to mention that. I don't know if you want anything to add.
No,
Okay.
we're good. Schedule?
Yeah. So as you can see, we're moving as quickly as we can. We recently have bid out the demolition phase. We have already mobilized in some areas. You'll see some of the temp fencing going up, some of the field offices starting to come out, and in some cases, they might even have started some minor removals. Our full-blown demolition scheduled to begin on April the 6th, and that's going to happen at 2 of the sites. That's going to happen at North and South, and about 2 weeks later, we're going to start at Torrance, and then the last one will start up on May the 4th. So construction on the fields, we're scheduled to begin on May 15th. We're scheduled to bid the fields on April the 17th, so we can start on May the 15th. And so we're looking at a field installation date early July, installing tracks in August, and completing the project on September the 2nd, and ready for your first home game.
And that includes the bleachers.
That includes the bleachers at 2 sites. So,
What's the
Go ahead.
start date of school, Dr. Manley? September 6th? Anybody know off the top of your head?
I believe Tim's right. I think it's the 10th this year.
yeah, it's going to be tight, and we're going to push, and of course, if we can finish it, even a week early, we're going to push as hard as we can, but we need every bit of time. So as soon as we fence those off, they'll be off limits, so to speak. And we are planning some pre-construction community meetings that are coming up on Wednesday and Thursday at all 4 sites, just to kind of walk the community, the school sites, on what they can expect, what's going to happen, traffic, access. We're going to talk about all that, just to make sure everybody knows what's going to happen out there. So we're looking forward to those upcoming meetings as well. So that should complete the fields, unless there's any other questions.
Yes, Dr. Ernst.
Yeah, actually, I have a question for Dr. Mannon. With these community meetings, how are we advertising those? Because I think it's important, certainly, that the community's involved in
Well,
at least knowing what's going
these
on.
meetings, Dr. Ernst, are really for the people who live around the.
Right around where the fields are going to be.
Correct. Right around where the actual construction is going to take place.
Yes.
And all of those folks were notified by mail.
So, and was there a radius that we followed? with that?
500 feet.
Okay, very good, thank you.
What, do we have any contingency plan in terms of if we do go into the school year?
Yes, we do. And the contingency plan would have to be the rental of portable bleachers if, in fact, we had to go there. Right at this moment, does not appear like we will have to do that, but that is our contingency should something happen at DSA.
But in terms of the field, it's,
Oh, I don't think there's an issue with the fields.
Yeah, we're DSA approved on the field.
We're already approved
Other vendors,
and
so.
we're moving on that.
okay. I had someone, a supporter of the South High School girls softball program, and Dr. Mann, I brought this up with you, but just to share with the public, there was some concern that in conducting the demolition and the grading of the fields, that there was some capping of the irrigation pipes to the softball fields, and we're right in the middle of the girls softball season. Has that issue been addressed?
Let me jump in here. We're currently working with the district, with Phil's staff, and we actually have an irrigation contractor on board that's working with Westberg and White and looking at how we're going to reroute and make sure that things stay watered so that obviously don't turn brown. So we're on top of that, and we're going to make sure that water keeps flowing to wherever it keeps flowing.
Great, thanks. Any other questions regarding the fields at this time? Thank you.
Thank you.
Why don't you guys stay up here? We're going to move on to measures Y and Z, the first phase. These are the long-term bond projects. And we're going to get into the modernization, first modernizations we're going to be doing out of the gates. We're going to be talking about here next Magruder Middle School, Westberg and White will cover that. And then after that, we'll turn it over to HMC Architects. They'll talk about South High School in Walteria. So I'll let you guys take it away.
I'm back. It just says a recap for the community is watching tonight. The district gave both our firm and HMC the responsibility of going out and looking at all sites in the district as to most needy to a little bit less needy. And that has been something on the website that's existed now for a period of time. And of those sites, we were granted 13 to review, and HMC, I think, was at 14, if I'm correct. And Magruder was at the top of our list, and that is the site that we are now out doing some due diligence on. And what we have been doing is that we've had several meetings already at the particular site. District staff has been there. Your superintendent has given direct charter understanding to the site as to what needs to be accomplished, what the bond should be paying for, and possibly what the bond should not be paying for. So I think there's a clear direction both by the architect and by the site group at Magruder. I'm especially pleased that your principal at Magruder has worked with us at Redondo Beach at Adams Middle School a number of years ago. So we have at least 1 foot going forward with Michael Voigt, and a great staff person you have. And so we've had lots of interface. Our biggest issues at Magruder are the fact that you've got kind of the Magruder Lake over where the portables are and the wood flats that are used to kind of walk from classroom to classroom during the rains. And so we're going to be having some surveying done to figure out where are the low points and where are the high points topographically at that particular site. The other big component at that site is the removal of existing portables leased and the replacement with 13 new permanent classroom buildings. We are doing the same thing on this particular site that IBI has done at your 2 Fern and Hull sites, pertinent to what is the best methodology of improving for classrooms stick frame versus portable construction. And so we're vying that out with Barnhart right now, and then we'll make a determination. But so far we're looking at doing parts of the classroom component, and there again we're meeting this Thursday with Magruder to show them our early designs, and that would be that part of the classroom, new classroom construction would be over there near the cafeteria area where all the portables exist right now. The other part would be at the other end of the site where the other row of portables exist right now, looking at making permanent classrooms on both sides, and possibly where the lake is, that might very well be a nice patio plaza.
Let's get to the next slide.
Okay, I'm sorry, my mistake.
There you go, down.
There we go. All right. So this is the existing site that you have as now. The blue indicates permanently constructed buildings. The gray classroom components are the portable classrooms that you have out at the site that have been there for a period of years. Let's go a little bit farther. And this is a little clearer shot here. All the red letters are indicating permanent buildings, and the blue P's are for portables. And so where I was talking about the area down below where we have portables, that's the area that we're probably going to make the largest kind of improvement out there. Also, all the covered walks are just really horrible out there. So you do have a special budget to replace covered walks at Magruder, as you have at a number of other sites. So we're looking at different variations, what I call the kind of the main boulevard, the walk that goes from the top of the page down to the bottom of the page. and looking at that, and also kind of seeing if we can bury all of that conduit that's kind of hung underneath the covered walks right now, which is done in almost every one of my districts back during the E-rate era, because you had to do it instantaneously or lose your funding, so everybody had to go do it real quick. And so we're going to see if that can all kind of go away and have a nice presence to the front of the campus. We're looking at some more fencing out on the particular site. We're also looking at, if you look up way at the top of the page, next to the portable that has kind of the gymnasium equipment, that's the other science portable. And we're looking to maybe move that portable down next to the existing science portable that's down on the lower right-hand side. So we'd have both science together. And we have a very restricted budget. So we are going to be giving our sites and the district staff some priority choices and finding out which way they want to be able to go. But we are moving quickly. We are envisioning being into DSA on this particular project in September of this year, trying to capture the good bid climate that we have at the present time. Any questions to the site?
Mr. Steffen.
Yeah, the lake is on the south side, right?
It is on the lower end of the picture where all the portables are, correct?
Okay. You discussed a lot of exterior, new construction as far as, we'll debate stick versus portable construction, all that. I don't hear anything about interior upgrades to these rooms.
Oh, absolutely. My mistake. Yes, we have a lot of things. A lot of your previous bond really handled the bathrooms, doors, electrical main service, but part of this $5.5 million allocation I think we have in this bond is going for total classroom improvements for those things that weren't done yet. We're looking at window replacements. That's a big key there. And we're looking at primarily the classroom investment, and then we get to the adult investment if we have enough money to do that.
So when you say adult investment, you're talking about the office?
Office, staff workroom,
lounge
teacher lounge, what have you. Certainly health issues, restrooms, anything that wasn't already done. But classrooms are our primary focus to this, and then the covered walks.
You kind of implied that the $5.5 million was minimal. I think I caught that.
We are hoping that we can do almost everything on the list, but we're going to focus on the highest priorities first.
And
I think
those priorities are things that immediately affect the kid,
absolutely.
and then work your way down
To
by
the
age
adults.
to old people like me.
Yes, and that's typical in most districts, the way they approach this is we do have a finite budget. It's not infinite. And so classroom environment is extremely important. The library, computer lab components, everything pertinent to education, everything pertinent to health issues, restrooms, sanitation, outside drainage issues, making sure the kids are walking through dry areas during the rain.
When you are in construction and you are working on buildings, does the district have a plan on, I don't know, you're working on a wing and you're removing windows?
Talking about staging?
Yeah, staging,
Construction
that's the word.
phasing?
Yeah, that's
Construction
what I'm-
phasing?
we
Yeah,
get
Gil
it.
can talk about that.
Okay.
One of the things we will do, and we're looking at that right now, if it makes most sense to do 2 wings at a time, 1 wing at a time. Obviously, the goal is always to have the least amount of disruption at the school site. So what we'll try to do is do like kindergarten buildings, admin buildings, multi-purpose buildings in the summertime. During the regular time is obviously to set up some interim housing. We do have budgets for that and look at, should we move 4 or 5 classrooms into that interim housing, or should we move 2 wings so we can get this thing done in about 9 months? So we're going to...
What you're saying is that we're going to drop some portables out there on that field, wire them up, and kids will rotate in and out of those portables.
Yes.
Okay, so I want,
Yes,
the community needs to understand that there will be an inconvenience, but a
Yeah.
necessary inconvenience, that children will move back and forth as wings become available again after
Exactly.
construction.
And that process is about 2.5 to 3 months per cycle. So that's as much as they'll be out of their classroom, so to speak.
Okay.
All right, Mrs. Reagans, then Mr. Lee.
Yes, actually, I had a couple of questions. You were talking about the science labs. Correct me if I'm wrong, one of those was recently built with QZAB funds, correct?
In the permanent building.
in the permanent buildings,
And the-
yes.
And the permanent
And they'll
building?
stay there.
Will stay?
Yes.
And so it's the other science lab at the top,
At the
or
top
at
and
the
bottom,
north
they
end
have
of
two
the?
portable science labs currently, and so those are the two he's talking about.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that. The other question is, I know the lake also surrounds the locker bay at the school, so that area will also be undergoing considerable renovation, shall we say?
Absolutely. And let me also clarify, these are all transitional design processes that are ongoing right now. Probably one of the most architecturally uninteresting parts of the campus is that kind of big quad locker
Yeah,
space.
I agree.
And so what we're really looking at is maybe a new roofed enclosure locker component. Looking at, if you see the wing E, which is kind of a foreshortened building, as having one component there. This is what we've done in a number of other districts. Even San Diego Unified is doing it that way. And also maybe at the end of wing B, that we would have a enclosed, and I'm not saying walled, but I'm saying maybe fenced, enclosed with a roof with some security gates on it. So at the end of the day, you can close everything down, but it's not down the hallways. And those are the areas we want to kind of get opened up again. I'm also, as an architect, suggesting to the district or to the sites that maybe we can put some more trees back in between the classrooms again and have some grass back in there again, so that you have that kind of nice feeling of a school site. And so all of those things are part and parcel of where we're headed for this $5.5 million budget that we have.
Okay, and one other question, since I know staff will be asking. The staff parking lot will remain the same, won't be minimized in any way?
It will not be minimized. We're hoping maybe that
Make it
over
bigger,
there near
maybe?
the portable that has the weight
Yeah.
room, maybe we can be moving that over a little bit towards the grass field a little bit to get a little more room for staff.
Great, thanks.
Okay.
Mr. Lee.
I'm going to say this now, even though I think it applies to every other project we're going to look at tonight. For the last 2 years, we've raised class sizes. A concern that I have is, hopefully we stop doing this at some point, but I don't really know when this is going to end. You know, are we going to run into places where we need to look at the size of the rooms? And it may be more when we look at J.H. Hall and Fern, or when we're building new rooms. But do we need to look at, as we're going forward, maybe larger rooms, or what's the overall consensus in the education community in California?
Well, Mr. Lee, I can quote what Department of Education defines as an appropriate classroom, and it's 960, whether it's a first grader or a 12th grader. And that's unfortunate. The only other size they define is for kindergarten, and that's around a 1,250 square foot classroom. Anything bigger is certainly on the onus of the district to make that decision. Square footages cost X amount of dollars. So that would really be the choice.
Now, you know, obviously you've got fire codes that say,
Yes.
in a classroom of 960 square feet, what's the maximum number, what's your maximum occupancy?
Loading factor is usually, yeah, okay.
Yeah, classrooms load at 20 to 1. It doesn't mean you're going to get that many kids in there. One of the things that we
20
chase-
square feet
Yeah, 20 square feet per person.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Not the 21 class size reduction. We're talking about square footage, not
Good point.
ADA.
One of the problems we chase is the code, as soon as you hit 1,000 square feet, requires a second exit. And a lot of these schools do not have that second exit. The second exit has to be a certain distance apart. Otherwise, it's not considered a second exit. And a lot of cases, it's just not doable unless you're cutting doors out the back, through the back wall, which in this case, being the long, slender buildings, you can. Not every school lends itself to that. But 1,000 square feet is a magic number.
So roughly, based on the numbers that you're using, according to fire code, it's a frightening number here I have.
You could have
there.
47 people in a classroom, it'd be legal.
Yes, you know, it's 48 kids in a
48.
classroom or 48 human beings in a classroom.
Right.
Can't fit that many desks.
No, I don't think you can, but yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question, and forgive me if you mentioned this already, but I heard you saying that you wanted to go to the state architects with plans in September. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And I know we've received and discussed schedules in terms of construction start and end times, and we don't have that attached to our handouts tonight, but just for the public's consumption, do we know when we project to start and finish Magruder Middle School?
Yeah, and it's, again, it's going to be contingent on the DSA approval. That's the big key factor. If they go in September, we're seeing stuff turned around in some cases 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. As soon as we have those approvals, and it might be more, I'm not sure, but as soon as we have those approvals, usually the outreach takes about a month, and we can put stuff out in the street. We're also going to work with the schools to see when it makes most sense to start construction there, because it might be that if the kindergarten wing is the first to start, it's hard to house kindergarten in a portable, so maybe we hold off, and depending on what makes most sense. So, but it's really contingent on DSA. So it's hard to just kind of predict it with the design process. We'll get into some more dates as we move into the bigger sites, as you'll see here with HMC. We'll talk more on some of these dates.
Okay, but just in terms of the Magruder community, then your best estimate is that sometime next year in 2010?
Definitely, definitely, yes.
Okay, all right. Any other questions regarding Magruder from the board?
Just one quick comment, I think. I think you just answered a question that a lot of people ask about why we are always starting with these football fields. Why are these, like, they're our biggest priority? They're just tend to be DSA the easiest thing to do. Right out of the bat,
Absolutely.
right? Okay, so there has nothing to do with our priorities.
No.
Correct.
Football or track or soccer or whatever. It's just that that's something that you can hit the ground running with, right?
Absolutely.
And the other thing is, and I know you're all aware of it because you've done it a million times. I know the staff's aware of it, and I know real soon the teachers will be aware of it, but there will be all sorts of meetings about staging and all this kind of stuff to keep the staff knowing, the schedule. Okay. Thank you.
And Ms. Stephan, I might say that the design teams that we have at each one of these sites, and Gary Wickham is going to probably talk about that at South and Walteria, is that we're reaching out to the community too. So we're having community members come in, and then we're going to have a number of different meetings where they can get a sense of where we're headed, what we're accomplishing, and what's ahead. So the look forward issue is always on our mind.
I wasn't here when the construction activity occurred from our Measure R bond in, when was that, 1998? 1998, that's right. But I know that one of the most frequent complaints was that among both the staff and the public was this seemingly illogical sequence of activity where it would seem like they would dig up something and then bury it back, and then a couple months later they'd be back and digging that back up again. What is to ensure that we're not going to repeat those kind of experiences?
Actually, Mr. Marsucci, I'm sorry, you missed the January 20th meeting.
I did.
And at the January 20th meeting, we had that same discussion on the question you asked. The answer is that the most efficient way to go about this is to take a whole school at a time and to fix everything at that school. The most inefficient way from a construction standpoint and from a financial standpoint is to try to pull out individual projects at individual school sites, because once you pull out that project, more than likely there's more than one system that's involved with it. And then when you go back to the school site to do another project, you may, in fact, injure what you've already done. Mm-hmm. So as both the Barnhart Corporation people and the architects indicated at that meeting, that the most efficient way from construction and also financially is to do it the way that we have it set up now, which is to go school by school.
And that is to ensure the more logical coordination of construction activity.
And the most efficient use of funding.
Okay. All right, any other questions before we move to South High School? Okay.
Hello, Gary Gidcombe from HMC Architects, and thank you for having us here this evening. Again, we'll come back in and talk about the process that we've been going through at South High School. It has been a very good process. We've had district staff involved, and we've been very much involved with bringing in the local site administration and available teachers and community members where applicable. And so far, the site meetings that we've had have been very good and very constructive. We've had one just last week, March 25th, and well attended, and it has been focused on making sure that we understand the bond measure, what can be achieved within that, defining clearly the scope, and always times keeping our eyes focused on the educational goals inside of there. Of course, we have to address the fundamental requirements of code issues that we come across, and we will absolutely be doing those. There will be restroom upgrades, there will be accessibility upgrades that will be going on through those things, and absolutely those will become key parts. Starting in the interiors of the classrooms, we had discussed what is going to be happening there from a student point of view. Flooring, finishes, upgrading lighting, things that will have quantifiable effects for the students, improved conditions, as well as looking at doors, windows, and especially the windows and the glazing, and seeing improvements there that are going to be both immediate for each student as well as being effective and efficient for the faculty and the staff. Those were design standards that we're going to be discussing for across the campuses, as well as specifics for individual rooms that may require special needs. Some of which may be like we went through and looked at a pottery room in that particular case, and I'll cover a little bit more about that in a second. We had looked throughout the fields for basic concerns, drainage, irrigation, landscape, and identified instances on each campus or on the campus where we would have problems and what worked well and what we needed to enhance. Other considerations going around there, technology, infrastructure, identifying what's going to be placed in there that we're going to be coming in and bringing in the backbone for the technology upgrades for the future. And then let me take it out from the outside of the campus coming in. We had discussed ways to improve the pickup and drop-off areas. Coming in, we're identifying that we've got road surfaces coming in that are in great need of upgrades in those areas, as well as how do we improve you deal with these things typically on many sites throughout. A pick-up and drop-off is a way of life for all campuses, and there are ways that we can go about improving these things. We had discussed both parking situations at the front of the school, as well as the staff and student parking, and exits both onto the main roads, ways of dealing with cross-traffic interflow at the intersection off of PCH, the secondary one that is coming out, as well as looking at the staff parking lot and potential for reconfiguration in there. Coming back into the interior of the campus, we had looked at the one area of potential revitalization for the campus is the student dining area, and interior and exterior. Right now it has a kind of a gloomy, kind of a dark cast to it. What can we do there? We had talked through what our priorities there. Obviously, we're going to be dealing with drainage issues and other things that are matter of life or conditions that we have to upgrade there, improving lighting, glazing throughout that lunch shelter into the interior of the cafeteria, things that would help there. But then looking at other opportunities to enhance natural light coming into those areas and enhance, there are going to be skateboarding issues. Apparently, we've been told that it has a YouTube following that is envied through most of the state if you're a student that is so inclined. And we'd be looking at those issues as well and addressing those as safety concerns both and maintenance concerns for the students.
To stop the YouTube
Yes.
phenomenon, okay.
I realize I'm disappointing many students throughout the district, but that is something that we will definitely be looking at. Going back through, we would be looking at certain reconfigurations where maybe like that campus or the one core curriculum that we're talking about, the pottery area, seeing if there's a more appropriate classroom. We went back and looked at some of the Q building quad areas that may be offering up opportunities for exterior spaces for such a program, as well as right now that area is, it's a bit small there, but it's housing, it's right off the faculty parking lot. There may be opportunities there for special education exterior uses as well as other exterior uses for the classrooms along there. Some of the
U-shaped building at the bottom,
U-shaped
right?
building at the bottom down there, which is currently used for parking, kind of parking as well as maintenance and operation issues for the shop conditions back there. There are two-story buildings along the campus side there, and that is where one of the major accessibility issues are going to be coming in. And we're looking at that and evaluating, because we're going to have to bring in elevators into that two-story option. That had been evaluated in the past, looking at what are the viable options. One of the past evaluations said we're going to be dropping in an elevator at each one of those classroom bands to take you up to the second floor of each one of those. So that would be 5 additional elevators there. We're also looking at the viability of reducing the number of elevators there, but putting in a second-story walk that would connect between all 5 of those buildings. So that will be a cost analysis, cost benefit that we'd be looking at for the campus, as well as evaluating what are the long-term maintenance issues for elevators. And let's see, other scope of work issues on the campus would include covered walkways, things that would be on the typical bond issues that are going to be addressing. Right now, those would cover to the portables where there is no covered walkway areas. And I'll going to move into Walteria, but we can cover questions right now on South High School.
Just one additional comment, Mr. President.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Gary, one of the things that you failed to mention is South High School's gymnasium will be redone under Measure Z. We've talked about fields under Measure Z, but Measure Z also included the renovation of the gymnasiums at each high school. So for members of our community also, that is a big deal. But when we get to those gyms, it's going to take some real logistical work, because they will be completely shut down because of the amount of work that will need to be done there. So South High Gym is the first gym that's going to have the renovation.
Okay, thank you.
And there will be substantial ADA issues that we're anticipating there as well.
Okay, Mr. Steffen, then Dr. Ernst.
Just as we go through this, I think this is more of a question, I don't know, for Phil or in support of Phil and the maintenance department. As we go through all these upgrades at different sites and in different firms, are we focusing on a district standard for our various hardwares and our various electrical systems and our various things? So this guy doesn't have to go out and get 43 different doorknobs to, for one.
That's a great question, and we have actually been bouncing around the district standards. There is, call it a template of what the district has on what types of toilets, what types of labs, what types of different products, and we're sharing it with all the design consultants in our program management team for input, to look at if there's anything outdated, is there something better, is there something more cost effective. So we're marking it up right now as we speak, and coming up with a revised set of standards that are more current, and make sure that they work with facilities with regards to products and looking towards the future. So that's what's happening, so that's a good question.
Yeah, and you can be assured that the district is really looking and making sure that the architectural teams meet regularly. One of those meetings will be tomorrow, and we come back and look at these things very collaboratively. These discussions will be had, and all of the teams will be coordinated.
Thank you.
Dr. Ernst.
Thank you, Mr. Marsucci. So I just had a question, actually, Gary, about the parking lot. I mean, that entrance exit, yeah, onto Cali Mayor is horrible, and it's an alley, it's behind a grocery store. I know you're not maybe there yet, but maybe you are. I mean, are there any, what is the discussion about how we, and this is our opportunity to make that a lot better.
We're really not there yet.
So-
They're going to have traffic engineers look at that whole issue. It was just brought up last week.
Oh, it was, okay, so
Yeah,
this
it
is
was just
something new
brought
to you.
up.
Okay, well, let me
Correct.
just reinforce that that's a big issue for South High, and I know the staff has talked about that, but we certainly need to remedy that once and for all, because it's, and I don't know, I mean, we've had the Torrance Police Department come and speak to the board about that issue, and according to their records, it's not necessarily a place where there are more accidents, is that correct? But I can tell you from a logistics standpoint, it's tough to get in and out. I mean, it takes a long time, and I've done that recently, actually, with my kids playing basketball through Park and Rec on the weekends, and it's really a nightmare.
Your comment was correct. There are many issues with traffic. It's not just that one. There's the frontage road and
Right.
the issue of the roots from the trees on frontage road that are up on PCH. There's the issue of how you get into the parking lot, how you get out of the parking lot. So they are actually going to have an engineering study done on the interior of that campus to determine how best and what kind of traffic patterns can be developed out of it.
Okay, so we'll get an update on that before it's approved, is that right, Dr. Mann?
It was, as soon as they complete that and work it into the design.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Yeah, and absolutely, we understand that that is a priority, and we heard that loud and clear from the site.
Mrs. Reagans?
And I just wanted to follow up on that. If we're talking about increasing the capacity of the bleachers, then that means ever so many more people that are going to be going in and out, plus that neighborhood is already overrun whenever we have events there. So it's going to be really, really important to address that parking and traffic flow issue. The other question I had is, which gymnasium are we talking about renovating? Each of our campuses has more than one.
It's the main gym.
Okay, so just the main gym, not
Main
the
gym.
other?
Just the main gym.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. We'll move forward. We're moving on the schedule for that particular project. We will have upcoming meetings in April, and we are targeted towards getting a DSA submission in the end of November. Okay, Walteria.
Actually, before you move on, again, depending on the state architect's approval, the South High School community can expect construction to begin sometime in 2010.
That's correct.
Okay. And I should have asked this also regarding Magruder, but this would apply to all the schools. Your PowerPoint identifies meetings with, I think you call them site committees. Where is that? Yeah, site committees. And I know that the site committees consist of both staff and parents, but for the general public, when and what kind of opportunities will they have to gain information and provide input?
After there is actually a preliminary design, and it depends on which school, there will be a public meeting that will be provided for parents and also for members of the public, just so that they have information and can take a look at the preliminary design. However, with modernization, there's not much really of design, quite frankly. It's more of the renovation type things, where you will see more of a real, what you may consider preliminary design, will be from IBI with Hull and Fern, since it's new construction.
But if a neighbor has any concerns that are not just limited to design, but, construction noise
But that's when we take care of it.
at these.
They're more than happy to come to the meeting, and we'll take care of that. Now, prior to the time that we actually start construction, just like we're doing with these stadiums, when it gets closer to the time of the actual construction, then we'll have a meeting with the neighbors around the school.
And for example, we have 4 meetings coming up next.
We have 4 meetings this week
Uh-huh.
regarding the stadiums.
Okay.
Right, and in those meetings, we will talk about, city constraints on noise, decibel levels, stuff like that, requirements, dust control. So we'll address those concerns that the committee's going to have.
All right, Mr. Lee.
Here's what I envision. Let's see if anybody's on the same page as I am. Yeah, we have the stakeholders, to use a rather tired term, students, the teachers, the people involved, and the adults involved in the school, involved in the initial design and prioritizing and those kinds of things. At some point, we'll have a plan. It may be all rehab, but it'll be a plan. It would be my wish, even though it may not be a very exciting meeting because we might be talking about toilets and doorknobs and things like that, but it would be my idea to want to go to those communities and say, here it is, because the whole community voted to, at a 75% clip almost to pay for it. They may be a little curious about it, and I think during the bond process, I remember us saying that a bit, that we would do that.
That is
Now,
exactly what we plan to do.
Okay, but I mean, it sounded like we were kind of going to do it in a format that the stakeholders would be involved, and then once the construction started, then we would.
No.
There would be an intermediate step where.
It's at the time that we have some preliminary plan,
Okay,
and we have to have a preliminary plan, then we'll have a meeting where we will invite people in the community
okay.
to see the preliminary plan. And you're right, it won't be too exciting, with that. And then at the point right before we have start of construction.
Then we'll have the construction meeting.
Exactly.
Okay, good, thank you.
I was just going to add, and as we move through the design development process, is the architects will develop what we refer to as a color board, and they'll start putting down the fabrics and standards that the district has chosen, and we'll put them up for display so that the school can start getting a sense of the types of materials and stuff like that will be used. So that'll go further on during the design development process.
Mrs. Reagan?
Yes, actually, I just wanted to follow up on one other thing. You mentioned the 2-story buildings at South and building elevators to get students to the second floor. I get this question all the time. Why are we considering building elevators? Could you explain why we do need to make sure there's access to that second floor? It's not just being serendipitous and picking to do that and saying, let's throw an elevator in there. But it's really a serious requirement.
Yes, it is absolutely a requirement. These elevators is no other accessible means of approach to those buildings on the second floor, and that will satisfy. An elevator is absolutely required by code for the modernization process of these buildings.
And it was not required when the buildings were originally built.
Correct. The existing conditions under the code that they were approved under, it was an approved condition at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Steffen?
Well, I don't know, I guess I kind of have a ADA thing here. But it's probably from the other perspective. You mentioned that, an elevator is a quite costly enterprise, not only to build, but to maintain and keep up on a yearly basis, correct?
Correct.
You mentioned something that you're looking to alternatives, one elevator and a walkway to access the other buildings or something like that. So you are looking to other alternatives to minimize that expense, because that could wipe out a budget real fast.
Right. We're absolutely looking to make sure that we're going to meet all the code requirements as well as all the budgetary requirements.
Okay.
And the budgetary requirements are going to be that comparison between options that we're going to have. We're also going to be looking at if there are certain travel distances that are going to be absolutely maintained and are code required. And so all of those compounded together will form the ultimate solution.
Okay. All right. But I don't think anybody here wants to end down, and the elevators aren't going to be the thing that does it, but end down the road where all of a sudden we planned X dollars, and because we spent a little over here, we run out over here. So I just keep that in mind, the big picture.
At this point, Mr. President, if I might make a comment, I think we just need to remind the board also, although this might be somewhat of a sore subject, that not all ADA requirements were met under the old Measure R. So to get our approvals that are necessary now for the amount of work that's going to be done, DSA has been cooperating with us, which I'm very thankful for, in allowing us to roll those ADA requirements that were not met under Measure R into this bond, and then allowing us to take care of those as we go from school to school. So we are appreciative to DSA for taking that position, but at the same time, there were ADA requirements which were not met and which we must meet as we're going from school site to school site.
Dr. Ernst, did you? No? Okay. Just to follow up on that, I mean, just thinking out loud here, of course, we want to comply with ADA requirements, but if the district somehow got away with it last time, why wouldn't we be able to not do it this time?
Well, in fact, we really didn't get away with it. And the bottom line is that the Department of State Architect's office can at any point stop us from doing any construction because those ADA requirements weren't met. That's why I indicated that they are cooperating with us, because they could have gone the other direction and required us to do all ADA projects first before we were allowed to touch any other project in the district.
All right. Any other questions regarding South High School? Yes, Mrs.
Just to
Brady.
clarify, when we're talking about ADA in this instance, we're not talking about daily
We're
attendance.
talking about the American Disabilities Act.
So it's accessibility of our buildings that is absolutely required now.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, Walteria. Why don't we hold off questions from the public after the entire presentation, just to have some sense of continuity. Thank you. Walteria Elementary School.
Walteria. We'd had our first scoping meeting March 10th at the district, and it was also attended by district staff as well as site administration staff, very much the same thing. We are going to then focus again on code issues. I'll repeat myself on these, but code issues, there are going to be other drainage, irrigation issues, other items like that. As we move through the site, there were some particulars that were noted there, and I'll cover the broad school first and perhaps coming back into some of the interior functions as well. We're looking at, probably one of the first things that was brought up was the entry, the drop-off situations on there. Another that was brought up was having school kids come in early before perhaps the official school time, and how do you both deal with that, and that was an issue that was on site. There were issues of how the school is currently configured. There are 5 kindergarten classes, 1 swing space kindergarten as well, so you got a total of 6. As the school was originally configured, it really has operationally 2 kindergarten classes that are up towards the front there. So right now they have kindergarten scattered throughout the campus, and as a result they have their kindergarten play areas that have to be, the kids have to be walked down, and there really aren't correctly identified areas for those. So that was another issue that had come up on the site configuration. There are portables, 4 of which will be replaced on the site right now, 4 that exist that will be replaced, as well as the addition of 1 new portable on site for a music and arts classroom. There will be on site, there will be the covered walkway additions out there as well. This in addition to the technological infrastructure backbone that we provided there, as well as considerations for the library and computer lab functions. So we were looking at it first as a campus. How does the campus function? What things, as you're going to be moving the students and teachers out of their classrooms, bringing them back in, how do we perhaps address some of the the structure of the classroom configurations in terms of grade configurations to support the curriculum, and looking at where we have playgrounds and how those can be broken up appropriately. Looking at also providing water and drainage from sinks to existing portables to current locations, and if those are going to be supported by the site infrastructure that we currently have, or if there's going to be some reconfiguration. What that means is we have portables that are right there, you see on the north of the end of the site. They may not be in an appropriate space for the water drainage to occur, taking it out to the site for the utilities. Let's see. Other issues on site, looking at the hard courts, the resurfacing out there, field drainage, there's a number of issues out there, as well as looking at the parking entry, restriping, whatever we can do there to assist in that area as well. Bringing that back around to the interior, again, we'd be looking at primarily the function of the classrooms, making sure that we're improving light in the classrooms with improved lighting fixtures, as well as addressing improved conditions through replacing the existing glazing there with improved energy efficiency. All these things working towards creating a more efficient classroom, flooring, painting, other finishes, taking it out again to the exterior, similar approach out there, repainting, looking at improving the fixtures. Obviously, there's a lot of, you look at the covered walkways, drainage, gutters, downspouts, all in very poor condition, things that would be improving out there. And then looking at the approach to the school. How does one enter the school? Making sure that the school has a good, strong identity. And that was something that we heard as a priority in looking at how possibly reconfiguration around the entry would also occur. And let's see, building systems, obviously we're going to be looking at the mechanical MEP upgrades, mechanical, plumbing, electrical upgrades across the sites as well. So we'll turn that back over to questions perhaps we have on the site.
Yes, Mr. Steffen.
Sorry, did you say you were going to take 4 portables away?
There will be a replacement of 4 portables that currently exist.
Oh, the old beat-up ones, new, not beat-up ones kind of thing? I mean, we'll just replacing, we're not losing classrooms, I guess.
We are not losing classrooms.
Okay.
There will be a net gain of 1 classroom on site.
Okay, thank you.
So your PowerPoint here indicates that you're submitting plans to the state architects by the end of September 2009. So assuming construction begins sometime in 2010, what is the projected period of construction until completion?
It's about like another 9-month process once we have DSA approvals. And most of these, they range from 9 to 12 months, depending on the sequencing.
9 months
9 to 12 months of actual construction from the start of construction.
From start to completion?
Yes.
Okay. Mrs. Reagans.
And to follow up on that, we'll be sensitive to the school year when we're looking at that, so they're not moving, in the middle of a semester or
Yeah, we look at it. We look at
trimester
when
or-
start testing is happening, when we're doing demolition, we really look at the calendar and work with the school principals, making sure that it makes sense. I mean,
Yeah,
we're
well,
not going to
because
do...
I'm sure you know it's not teachers' favorite things to be moving in and out of their classrooms, so as much as
Exactly.
we can minimize that pain, the better.
Yeah, we'll do our
Thanks.
best.
Any other questions?
Just one.
regarding- Yes.
So the projects, not counting necessarily the fields, but the modernization projects, Magruder and South and Walteria, at some point are going to be simultaneous. They're going to be going on at the same time. Okay, all right. Okay, I just want to make sure. And this is the first. This goes into the first phase of our bond sales.
Correct.
It's a portion of our bonds.
Right, and it won't only be those, but it will also be the new construction also.
Okay.
And as with the other schools, we have site committees, parents providing input as to the design and
Absolutely. Yeah. both schools have been an excellent site committee to work with. You have an interim principal there, Bobby Wenoff, and she has pulled together many teachers from there, as well as I think she's in touch with the community there, and I think we have a very strong group.
Any other questions regarding Walteria? Okay. New construction.
Mr. President, one
Yes.
comment before IBI starts their presentation. The one architecture group that is on the clock more than maybe the other two firms is IBI, which Barbara represents and will be giving a presentation tonight. But Hall Middle School is actually on the clock. Wednesday is April 1st, and Barbara has 30 months from this Wednesday for students to be walking into the new Hall Middle School. So that is her timeline to meet.
And Dr. Manning, to follow up, where does that fall in our school year then?
I believe, Mrs. Reaganson, and you actually worked that out one day, I believe that comes to October.
It's close.
And in this case, since it's a brand-new school and those students will be there, we have the opportunity to actually move students at any time into their new school. Since they're already housed, and that allows us the time to be able to get the school ready and actually move students at almost any point.
I'm just turning it over to Barbara.
Thank you, Dr. Manning, for that reminder. Actually, we hope to do better. I mean, we should try and we will certainly look to get the school complete for the students to enter at the beginning of the school year, September. Anyway, good evening, Mr. President and the board and district. Thank you. I'm Barbara Helton with IBI Group, and we've had the honor of working on your new construction projects, Hull and Fern. And I'd like to start with Hull. We've had, first of all, again, our recognition to Barry Lafferty, the principal over there. He's put together a really terrific site committee meeting. Ms. Reagan joined us in one of the initial meetings. We've had 2 full site committee meetings, and on a separate track, we've been having a subcommittee meeting with the educational staff. So in brief, I'll look at it just briefly with you on the 2 tracks. The first subcommittee, the full site committee meeting that we had, as our notes indicate here, we really looked at the site issues. There was a lot of concern over field use, transportation, traffic, how vehicles moved relative to bike traffic and pedestrians, and less focus there originally with this group with the makeup and how the classrooms would be disposed. That conversation we really kept more with the educational committee. But we did, in general, everybody was very excited about the opportunity to bring a much better relationship now with indoor and outdoor space. There was a clear interest on all parties to group the school along ages 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So I'm going to switch here just briefly to show you the site plan, and then I'll talk briefly about the discussion we've had with the educational committee. This site plan was presented at our second site committee meeting, and this is the result of many different, we brought about 3 or 4 different options to the committee that looked at different dispositions of parking. And it was the consensus of the committee that all parking should be consolidated for staff and visitors, and all ingress and egress should be off of 231st Street. We've also had within our office our transportation and our traffic engineers look at this. So this parking lot shows you conceptually the recommended distance away from Arlington Avenue, and the ingress and egress so that it does not line up with the T Street across the street from 231st. We are proposing, as you can see, a right in only and a right out. There will be 2 lanes of drop-off, And those lanes will be separate from the parking area, which the staff area can actually be coned off in the morning. There's been situations at the old Hull Middle School where parents would pull in between the traffic aisles, the parking area, and try and drop off kids additionally. So that will be coned off, so that can't happen. School entry will be directly off of the main drop-off aisles, and then we're looking at some additional discussions with the educational committee on how those groups of students will be disposed along the site. Also, there was a lot of discussion about the field area. It was recognized that AYSO has a very strong use of these fields. Those fields will be maintained. There was also very much an interest to make this a field area that really responded to the health needs of the students. And we've specifically sort of talked about a loop that would run around the site. In fact, we've looked at a loop, and it's a third of a mile. That could be probably like a DG run, a running track. That's also can be for walkers and runners. So as we begin to progress with the field design, we know that those are issues that will be incorporated into the plans.
That would be like a walking track that would be accessible to like seniors in the neighborhood, for example.
Yes, yes. There's been discussion again about that the fields need to be open for off-site use during the days, weekdays as well as the weekends. We've had beginning discussions about having restrooms that are associated with that usage. So those have been documented in our meeting minutes, and when we move into design, those are the items that we'll be bringing into the design. Just very briefly, we don't have anything to show for it yet, but we've had, because we're still very much in the fact-finding stage with the educational committee, we've had one initial meeting with Mr. Lafferty and some designated staff representatives, and we're going to have a second the middle of April. And we've started having some really wonderful discussions about how the classrooms will be organized on the school, and looking at them really as a series of groupings. And this goes to one of the questions that you asked earlier, Mr. Lee, about class size. These will be 960 square foot classrooms, but we're looking at them being grouped such that team teaching can take place, age groups can be in one area, small learning communities can be designed. There is a lot of research that coming out today for both middle school and high school, where if you can keep those same 100 or 125 kids together for all of their classes, that may be something that works very well for kids. So we're looking at all different ways of clustering the kids. 6th grade at Hull team teaches. Math and science are taught by the same teachers, so whatever kind of configuration that we come up with will be flexible enough to provide all those different opportunities as the school moves forward for another 30 years. Any questions on Hull?
Yes, we have Mrs. Reagans, then Mr. Steffen, then Dr. Ernst.
Thank you, Mr. President. The cafetorium then on this diagram would be where it says building area?
Ms. Reagans, again, this is just conceptually.
No.
We have not gone any further than what we would call bubble diagrams.
Okay.
So the idea is that the cafetorium would be a space that would be near the entry to the school, so that you could literally secure off the rest of the school, and the multipurpose room would be open for after-hour activities. And so generally we're saying it's near the entrance to the school.
Okay.
But that's really as far as we've gone until we get more input from the site committee.
Okay. I did want to express a little concern about the pickup drop-off entryway with the 2 lanes. That's the current arrangement at the Levy site that they're trying to use, which actually is somewhat problematic, actually, getting parents to go in the right directions and having kids being released in 2 different locations and with cars in between them and the curb and all that kind of thing. So it's something to consider in the design. Thanks.
Well, if I may respond to your question there, one thing that we've looked at pretty carefully is given the number of vehicles that we've told that would come through for morning drop-off, which is about 300. It is 2 lanes, but the way that we were proposing that this be done is that there's literally 5 cycles, and that the cars are allowed to come in, they are stopped, so that children from both rows can disembark, so that, say, the inboard lane of cars, children aren't exiting through cars that are moving. So it's literally 5 cycles, takes about 15 minutes, and all children then, and that's with a stop and start, so that their children are not moving through cars that are
So there'd be like a
going.
stop sign, having them
Well,
come
it's
in
not a
en
stop
masse
sign,
and then
it's-
leave en masse?
It's with on-site staff.
Or a
and-
stop light, actually? What have you.
And there was, the majority of the discussion was really about this parking lot. And
Because it is a problem.
given the experience and the staff's feelings were that this would work very well for them, given how Hull worked and how Levy works. And my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Stowe, but Levy seems to work pretty well for them there, is my understanding. They clear that out, it's congested while they're waiting for kids to pick up, but nothing moves, and then
Well, it'll be
They're
interesting
gone.
to see if the 300 estimate holds true. It does currently because we're busing half the kids. But if, each student has someone driving them, that's more like 800 cars. Just to throw a wrench in the works.
Well, they thought that a lot of those kids that are being, there would still be, this was still, they felt a fairly accurate number, and we got this number from the district, from their experience before at Hull, because then a lot of kids walk and a lot of kids bike ride. That right now are
300 was-
being bused.
300 was the actual count prior to moving to Levy. That was their count at the old Hull site in terms of cars. And we utilized that in developing the move from Hull to Levy.
Mr. Steffen.
Backing up from October 2011, how long is construction on a site this big? Do you anticipate?
Gil?
That's a good question. Well, we haven't talked about the schedule yet, but one of the first things we're going to do is we're currently working with IBI to develop plans to demolish the existing school, and that's going to happen as fast as the end of this coming June is what we're shooting for, is to get that school leveled, to get it out of the way, start looking at the dirt, start working with DTSC and looking at what it's going to take to get this site environmentally friendly so we can move on into construction. And once the plans are developed, we'll start looking at developing a schedule. But we're basically going to work off the mandate, and whatever the target date is what we're going to meet. We're going to work backwards and make sure that her plans are into DSA so that we hit our target. I mean, if we have to double shift it, triples, whatever we need to do to hit that target, that's what we're going to shoot for. So we're just going to kind of work back from that end date and make it happen, and that's kind of where we're at. But until we see designs, it's kind of hard to really throw a number on it.
Okay, that's where I was heading, so when you had to submit, but you're just gonna, okay. Now, the other thing, you brought up my second question with DTSC, and I assume you're talking about environment friendly with these oil things.
Yes, and I wanted to add to my discussion to date is the RFP, the request for proposal was issued. Responses, there were 4 responses received, and they've been reviewed by Barnhart in the district, and we're going to meet tomorrow to go over those again and select a firm.
Is this for demolition?
This is for the completion of the report required for DTSC.
Oh, okay, this is for, okay.
For the environmental.
Okay.
And so that will be done tomorrow, and I'm not sure the district's requirements before that work can be issued to proceed, but it's well within our schedule, and we initially had some real concerns that might hang us up, and it's not going to hang us up at all.
All right.
Dr. Ernst.
Just before I'm sorry, yes, please.
Oh, yeah, just a couple of comments, and Mrs. Reagan's is right. The parking is, and you've already mentioned that was one of the big issues for the committees is the parking issue, but I can tell you Jefferson, I mean, it's all done right on the street, and it's a mess. So at least we have an opportunity to start over
Try to
here.
fix
And
it,
yeah,
yeah.
try to fix that. But our schools were all built well before we were, as parents, driving our kids and picking them up. So those are issues that we have to deal with. Just a couple of questions then. So as we put this plan together with the traffic study and such, how are we working with the city on that?
I've spoken to the city and looked to set up a meeting with the city, but they've asked that we just email them a site plan and they will look at it. They're really busy for the next 2 months trying to get some shovel-ready projects in line to try and grab some stimulus money.
Okay.
So we've been in contact with them, and I'll probably be emailing him a PDF of the plan that you see in front of you tomorrow.
And this isn't, I mean, this plan that you have here really doesn't deviate from what is currently at the site. I mean, that's the same place that the parking lot has always been, isn't it?
There is some difference in the fact that they have the 2 lanes up against the building area.
Yeah, right,
the
but I mean, the
change.
entrance and the
Oh, no,
exit
the
are
entrance and
basically
the
the
exit.
same.
Very
Okay,
similar.
right, so, right.
Very similar.
And then finally, Dr. Mannon, we've had a variety of conversations about this process, which the board has a desire actually for us to have quite a bit more input from the community. Will you speak to that, please? And how that would look? Yeah.
When Barbara actually has a preliminary design completed, then what we intend to do with that is not only will the stakeholders at Hull use it, but also Mr. Marasucci and I indicated to the neighbors that we'll have a meeting somewhere within the community, and Barbara will be doing a presentation on the design and allow for comment. Prior to the time that Barbara has the final design, we'll also have another meeting where members of the community can see the final design for the school and make any comment.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mannon. So, and Barbara, on your presentation, it says community presentation actually mid-May. Is that what we're shooting for?
I think it's probably going to be a little bit, probably late May, June at the most.
And that'll
We
be
do
with a
have-
very preliminary design.
Yeah, that'll just be an opportunity for the community, the neighbors in that area to see at least where we are at this point, and then I guess we can prep them for the demolition because that's going to be a big project.
Exactly.
So we'll talk about that at that time, Dr. Mannon, and then get more input as we work through that design a little bit more in the future.
That's correct. And I think we are with the, at least the very preliminary work that Barbara's been doing, meets some of the concerns that the neighbors had with design.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Mrs. Reagans?
Just clarification on DTSC, remembering that there are people in the audience that may not know what that means. Could you tell us what that organization is?
It's the Department of Toxic Substances Control.
And that sounds as though we're building a school on a toxic something.
And it basically, all we're doing is we're picking up where the district had left off. The district had gone halfway through the process and identified the remediation that was going to be required, if any. Part of this process that will be done by the next consultant is they will go out there and they will do some soil testing and determine if any of those oil wells are still emitting any sort of gas. And if they aren't, there may be less mitigation than was anticipated. Previously, the mitigation that was anticipated is just basically a passive membrane that goes underneath the foundations of the buildings. So we'll know that better after we get the next round of
And this is to
soil
ensure
samplings.
that we're not building in a toxic way and that our students will be safe, the buildings will be
Absolutely.
safe,
That is correct.
meeting all requirements. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Lee?
Yeah, just as a follow-up, I grew up 100 yards from there. In fact, I remember when the school wasn't there, and it was just a couple of oil wells and a mini bike track, since I am very old. And so, in fact, first graduating class. But, just so everybody knows in the community, I mean, there were oil wells out there. They weren't producing chemicals. There wasn't a refinery there. There weren't those kinds of things out there. There were oil wells, and a retention basin and those kinds of things. So every time we kind of have this conversation, I'm sure there's visions of,
Yes.
stacks and those kinds of things. It was just kind of like all the rest of southeast Torrance looked at the time. They were random oil wells. So just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
So we're not talking the Belmont Learning Center of
Oh, no.
LAUSD? Okay.
No, we're not talking, no, it's Hermosa. We want to get rid of that name, no more Belmont.
Yeah.
Vista Hermosa.
Before you move on, I know that we've had discussions about how this is our only brand-new school that we're going to be building from our bonds, and that this would give us some, perhaps give us some opportunities to have something not only architecturally, aesthetically pleasing, but also in line with a lot of what's going on in the country, to have this be a green building. What design concepts are you considering at this point incorporating to make this a green building?
Well, it starts with the items that cost you nothing, which is good site design. We'll certainly look to orient these buildings to take advantage of natural daylight into the classrooms, prevailing breezes. We have a terrific opportunity in this district in that you won't be air conditioning these buildings, which is marvelous. So, and also to take the opportunity for outdoor space, trees, where we can use trees to shade as well as make those spaces that much more enjoyable. So natural daylight, prevailing breezes, operable windows, outdoor learning spaces and courtyards. Clearly the building systems will be meeting all of the they'll be constructed of the necessary requirements to make them comfortable in summer and in winter. The buildings will of course be heated.
So,
And even down to, we'll look and see as we start to get into the budgets. But for example, if we can use permeable concrete or permeable asphalt in the parking areas, so that we can look at not only what's above ground but underground to make the site as sustainable as we can.
So in terms of trying to help the community visualize, of course, you're going to be presenting your designs very soon, but when you talk about taking advantage of natural lighting and open space and so forth, is it going to be, immediately recognizably, obviously different from our existing schools in terms of how open?
Well, I don't want to give too much away, but it will be very different than what Hull is now. Hull is, these little finger plan buildings that basically are oriented absolutely the wrong direction. I mean, the best building should be oriented east-west, so you get most of your light from the north, and then you shade the south side, and then you get a balanced light and the best light, and those buildings are oriented absolutely the opposite. So, and then there's really no open space between the classrooms, and everyone on the site committee is very enthusiastic about the notion of some courtyards and green space where you can look at the classroom and see trees. But in answer to your question, the site plan will be very indicative of the kind of, what's built, what's open, and the orientation of the plans. We always show a north arrow. Our site plans will show sort of the direction of the prevailing winds and the direction from which the winds go. And we're already beginning to look at that as we start to lay the buildings out.
Okay, so we'll be looking forward with anticipation. Mr. Lee?
I just thought of something, because when we talk to architects are artists, and we end up with beautiful things. And then the engineers come along, and the people who have to build it come along, and they build it the way hopefully the architect wants. And then we get it, and then we got to maintain it. And I'm hearing lots of trees and shrubs and grass and all this cool stuff that we don't do. I mean, we don't have enough people to mow the grass we have now. So I'm just a little concerned that maybe when we go through this process of making everything cool and, granted, landscaping is wonderful, only if you can maintain it. So hopefully we're talking to our district staff and we're not ending up with, nightmares and maintenance as we go forward.
I was just going to jump in here and add that definitely checks and balances, and we're definitely involved in looking at that kind of stuff and looking at what shrubs or trees are going to be low maintenance and don't necessarily need to be watered all the time. So we're working alongside, and if we think maybe it's a maintenance nightmare, then we're going to say something and make sure that it doesn't end up on the design if it doesn't make sense for long term. So
Yeah, I mean, it's awfully hard to get kids to walk and not cut corners, and hence you end up with green areas between schools. I can think of Towers that has green areas between schools, but, you know, they all have big X's in the middle of them because
No,
the
we
kids are cutting
totally
the
understand, Mr. Lee. I mean, we've done nothing but public schools for 25 years, and we know the budget constraints. We know maintenance is at the table with us from the get-go. And, I mean, we can't be really conscious about the work we do today, particularly in this energy environment, if our buildings aren't simple and maintainable, and they can still be, you know, very beautiful. And a tree well-placed can go a long way and need be nothing more than a tree well-placed with some benches underneath it.
Thank you.
Okay. Fern Elementary School.
All right, Fern Elementary School. They're so delighted to have all of their campus potentially back on one site here in the near future. And I just put that up because that is one of the principal's comments. It would just really be wonderful. They've had the goal of having all the students on one campus for a very long time. Same process as Hull. Valerie Williams there is a new principal. I think this is her first year, if I'm correct. And she's embraced the process wholeheartedly. She's developed a great site committee. We have representatives from all age groups from the neighborhood. Dr. Kim has attended every one of our meetings, and many of the district representatives as well. We just finished our second meeting with the site today. We had a lot of discussion about what was going to go into the new building, some potential modifications to the multi-purpose room that might work better for the staff now. We presented them today, but it was not able to have it here for this PowerPoint, which you needed last week. The first conceptual site plan that laid out all the additional new 14 classrooms. They also wanted to see if we could find space in that building for 3 additional small offices that they need for council, psych, and speech, and a staff workroom. So we've been able to, we think, carve that out into the new classroom building. Let me show you. This is really the old site plan, but it's still conceptually very similar to what we showed the school district today. The blue buildings are the one-story multi-purpose building, and the support building has the new food service, a restroom building, and a computer lab. Those plans were DSA approved. We do now have to go back to DSA because they were approved over 2 years ago. There's a new code that's come into play, and so there's some checking and some structural calculations that we need to redo, and there's a few modifications to that multi-purpose room that can now make it more efficient under the new code that we don't have to comply with under the old code. For example, under the last code, if you were building a new multi-purpose building, you could not install a lift. You had to put in a ramp inside the building. Now a lift is acceptable, so that's saved us a lot of space, and the school can use that much more to their advantage. The pink represents the location of the new classroom building that will be permanently constructed. And we've been able to sort of tighten up those dimensions so it's more cohesive and in line with the blue buildings. We don't have to have the gap in between them, which was potentially kind of a security problem for the school site. So this plan is moving along. We have one more site committee meeting that we set today for two weeks out. Which day, Gordon? 20th, April 20th, a Monday. And at that point in time, we will have 3-dimensional drawings for them. I'd like to also say that this new building in all of Hull, we're doing in what we call BIM, Building Information Modeling. It's really the way architectural drawings in the future are going. It's three-dimensional modeling. We draw everything in a program that is three-dimensional, and it allows us to integrate all of the systems at the same time three-dimensionally. So one of the real benefits of that is we can develop a three-dimensional perspective and renderings very, very quickly, which really helps the school site see what the building is going to look like. So at the April 20th meeting, we'll have some conceptual renderings of this school building, along with the multi-purpose building as well. And we get the input from the site committee, and then we'll be prepared to have a community neighborhood meeting, and we're tentatively looking at that for May 14th to be confirmed. Site security has been an issue. They were tagged this weekend. They had some graffiti on the west face of the existing building. It seems that kids can jump in through the kindergarten area, that existing little play area that's at the southeast corner of Fern and Euclid is really El Dorado. We need to correct that. So there was some consternation and concern on the school district's part, and we're going to look and see if we can mitigate that with potentially a little higher fence on the inside of that play area that's exposed to the street. So that is of a concern. There's been the desire for security cameras on the campus from the principal's point, and so Phil's been there. He knows of this request. We'll certainly look at that as we march down the cost estimate road as this project becomes more real, which is going to happen pretty quickly.
Mr. Steffen.
Yeah, one thing that's always concerned me about Fern is that it is a relatively small space, the campus itself, compared to other sites. And I don't know, Phil, what do we have over on the Greenwood Park? 5 buildings, 6 portables? 6 portable classes. So I assume those are 30 to 1 or something like that. So you're talking 180 kids, 200 kids over there, and those kids will now come to this site. Now, those are 4th and 5th graders over there, the big kids. Does this site realistically have the room to bring those children over and still have enough play space, enough getting around space for those kids to manage themselves without?
I sure think they do.
The kids do, or who's they?
Staff.
The staff thinks they do.
Staff is delighted to have those kids over.
Okay. And so when we're placing this multi-purpose building, I'm looking at this, and I don't know why it's angled at a 45-degree angle to life, but there's probably a reason to that. But
Well,
is that the best use of space? Or if there's a good reason, let me know.
Well, the angled area behind in that triangular space that's created along Elm is actually the service yard. So that's going to be where the
trash and
the trash, the electrical enclosure is back there. So there is a real reason for it. It's not just an architectural move.
And I'm looking at now. I work in Hawthorne School District as a teacher, and I know Mr. Blue Rock. You work with Mr. Blue Rock. I know he did a number of buildings out there for us, and he built a number of 2-story buildings out there for us. Is this a similar design on the interior, or do you know what I'm speaking?
Well,
about?
I do. I mean, if you're talking about Kornblum and York,
and that's where I work. York and eucalyptus and yeah.
Well, they will. Gosh, it's been a while, Mr. Stevens. since I've
Well, they
been in
have
those classrooms, but
there are 3 classrooms to a pod inside, 2 skinny ones and a square one in the middle with a
the shared work area.
shared work area.
behind
Is this
them.
a similar interior design?
Not now, not at this point. The design that we looked at today, these classrooms are actually a little more square. They're about 32 by 31, give or take.
So those are more
change.
traditional.
And they're a portable is 24 by 40. So these are a little more square, which actually provides the classroom with a little more flexibility.
Right.
And we're not locked into that 24 by 40 since this is not a modular manufactured building anymore. But there is no shared space in between them.
Okay.
They
Well,
are
that's
more
not a
conventional
problem.
in those terms.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
One thing, just in answer to your space that we discussed today, is there is the opportunity to move these buildings about 5 or 6 feet closer to Elm Avenue than in the previous design. Because it was a modular building, there were construction issues that we had to meet, so the buildings had to move inboard a little bit. But we discussed that today, that these buildings could potentially move about 5 or 6 feet further east and give that much more room back into the site, and also not create kind of this little bowling alley area that's between the building and the chain link fence. So we're going to be looking at that after our meeting today.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lee?
Really, after Torrance High, this is our most architecturally historical built structure that we have. Possible exception of the EMB building, but that's just teasing. But anyway, it's getting late. I assume that we're going to respect the architecture that's there, not, well, I mean, from what I've heard internally, we are. I just kind of wanted to get it on the record.
Absolutely. And I believe you were the one that had the comment at our last meeting about your legacy here of Irving Gill and the
Yes.
architecture within in Torrance. So, yes, in fact, the multipurpose building, as designed, has a gable tile roof. So, and some exposed wood beams, some nice big deep wood beams that cover the lunch shelter. And the classroom building, again, it was one of the reasons that we were delighted to see that you wanted to go with conventional construction, because we can control that sensitivity towards the existing aesthetics even more.
Good. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other questions regarding Fern? Do we have closing comments or before we open it to the public?
I just want to say thank you for listening, and that pretty much concludes our presentation. And yes, we'd like to move forward if there isn't any other questions from the board.
All right. Well, since the members in the audience have been patiently waiting, if there's no objections from the board, I'd like to open it up to the audience first. I know, gentlemen, why don't you come up first? And do we have cards today? Shall we just do it the city? Okay.
Okay. My name is Brad Moylan. I'm the chair of the Torrance Youth Council, and I'm also a senior at South. I have a couple of questions on a couple of different issues. First, I'm wondering how much, if any, student input is planned or has taken place or is planned on a lot of these site committees and things like that, especially in the high schools. So I guess that's first. Do you want me to list all my questions? Or do you want to go one at a time?
Yeah, since we may be able to answer them together, why don't you just identify all your questions?
Okay. Second, I'm wondering what kind of security lighting is planned at all of these sites. I know many of them have problems at night with security issues, and in the Torrance strategic plan, we identified a lot of lighting things in cooperation between the city and the district, and I'm wondering if we've looked into any of that. Also at South, you were talking about the elevators and contemplating whether having an elevator in each of the 5 two-story classrooms or walkways or something like that. And I'm wondering if these planned elevators would be general, open elevators, or whether they would need to be specifically, if they've got a key so that they're only for the handicapped, or something like that. Because I think if they're open, that cause a lot of problems. You've got 2,400 kids walking around. I think that's it.
Okay, great questions. Dr. Pan?
In answer to your first question, the site committee has met a couple of times. I would suggest if you want to participate, you might want to talk to Mr. McDowell. In answer to your second question about lighting, there is security lighting at all school sites, if I recall correctly, as part of the modernization piece, because lighting is a problem, especially for meetings. And third, Dr. Stabler was nodding his head. These elevators are not for general use. They're for students with disabilities, and therefore they would be keyed.
Okay. How much? I understand that the site committees have met with the architects and things like that, but I'm wondering, are these site committees strictly faculty, administrators, and parents, or especially on the high school sites, are there students involved? I feel like
As I indicated to you, the one at South has faculty, administration, parents, and staff.
okay.
So if you would like to participate, I would suggest you may go in and talk to Mr. McDowell about
I
it.
mean, I'm graduating 3 months, but I'm wondering because this is a long-term project.
Well, I understood, but still yet, you could have
Yeah.
that conversation with him.
Okay. Thank you.
No, I think you raise a good point, and I would encourage, if not yourself, someone else at South High School to, as well as all of our high schools, or all of our schools for that matter, if they have an interest, to participate in this process. We have Mr. Lee, then Mrs. Reagans.
I think from a policy standpoint, student body president ought to be part of the process. I mean, just from a policy part, just so that we've got a little input, as we go through this process, at least at the high school, because they're the end users. And, I just think it's a good idea if we can do that from a policy standpoint, but I'm only one person up here, so I don't know if we got nodding heads or not.
Do you want to make a motion to encourage site committees?
We can.
I don't think we have to.
Oh, okay,
I
we
really
haven't,
do that,
because
but
we-
I think I see
Not on the
nodding
agenda,
heads.
okay. All right, so because we didn't notice it pursuant to the Brown Act, we can't make motions tonight, it's purely for discussion only. Mrs. Reagans.
And I want to second that I think students should be involved. And in fact, we did have students apply for the Citizens Oversight Committee, and I put a student's name forward for that. Did not end up happening, but I do think students are critical to this process. So please pursue it, Mr. Moylan.
And also, Ms. Muha, you are institutionalized into this process as the student representative, and so we encourage you, not only for North High School, but for all the schools, if you have any thoughts or ideas or suggestions which you think are particularly relevant from the student's perspective, please jump in. Okay. Anyone else? There was another hand. Yes, please come forward.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board. My name is Robert Johnson, and I'm a resident of Torrance. I live in Old Torrance. And at the previous meeting, there was some discussion, or at least mention, on the part of the board about utilizing local services or local entities that may be involved in these projects. And I myself am a DSA school inspector. I have been for 25 years. And I'm currently on an $84 million job that'll be ending in the middle of the following year. And of course, would like to be involved with, possibly, with some of these projects. I don't have a clue to who to get in touch with. If anybody can provide that information, that'd be great.
Mr. Johnson, what I'd like you to do is, if you go on the Torrance Unified School District website, and you go in, there's actually Barnhart Construction Company has their logo on there. Click on that, and it'll get you right into them, and you can put your name in there, and they'll be glad to work with you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Any other comments, questions? I'd like to acknowledge that and thank, we have several members of our Bond Oversight Committee, our community volunteers who are serving as the watchdogs for how we spend the bond funds, and so we thank all of you for coming out tonight. Any other questions from the board? If not, thank you very much.
You need to make a motion.
Yes, we need a motion. Your favorite motion,
Once
Mr.
you're
Lee.
right ahead of me.
I move that we end the meeting.
Second.
All those in favor? Meeting is adjourned.